Committee will be in order. I thank everyone for your patience while we recess to go vote. I now recognize Ms. Chavez de Remer for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for holding this unfortunately necessary hearing. President Gay, McGill, Kornbluth, while I appreciate your testimony, I am a bit confused. In each of your testimonies, you address anti-Semitism on your campuses in the present and future tense, as if there's no underlying cause predating October 7th, which explains why many of your students were at the ready to harass, threaten, and attack Jewish students. Are we really to believe that anti-Semitism didn't exist on your campuses before the Hamas attack? As presidents of the universities, your jobs don't stop at fundraising and promoting academic success. The cultures of your campuses have no greater influence than you and what you choose to prioritize. And at an educational institution, the most powerful mover of culture is the education itself. The opportunities to learn about people's history provide students the best chance to challenge preconceptions, biases, and inspire curiosity to understand rather than villainize. At each of your schools, there are numerous classes focused on Latino, Black, Indigenous, and AAPI history. The existence of such classes is necessary, speaks to your commitment to these communities, the commitment to the amplification of those voices. Minority groups need their voices at the table. The Jewish people make up 2.4% of America's population and are only 0.2% of the global population. For the past 5,000 years, they have been enslaved, lynched, and systematically murdered. During that same time, they have relentlessly improved the course of humanity, selflessly contributing to societies which eventually betrayed them. And yet, President Gay, your university, Harvard, teaches only 2 courses on the history and culture of the Jewish people at the undergrad level. And one of those classes is focused on portraying all Jews who support Israel's existence as colonialist and racist. Compared to the roughly 125 classes Harvard offers on Latino, Black, Indigenous, and AAPI history, the discrepancy feels odd. But you're not alone. President McGill, the University of Pennsylvania, offers 3 classes on Jewish history to undergrads. And President Kornbluth, MIT only offers 2 classes on Jewish history to your undergrad students. This gives the impression that your deans and professors view Jews as an exception, that their voice as a minority group isn't worth amplifying. This near erasure of Jewish history from offered courses is chilling to me. Harvard, MIT, and the University of Pennsylvania offer its students an incredibly limited opportunity to learn about the 5,000 years of Jewish history. It's no wonder so many of your students see Jews as having less humanity than the rest of us. In denying the Jewish voice a seat at the table, in denying your student body equitable access to Jewish history, you have created a hostile environment for Jewish students. If you provide your students real opportunities to learn about Jewish history at the same rate as you teach the history of groups, there will be wait lists for those classes. That would provide students the appropriate venue to discuss, debate, and learn. It will inspire your students to have meaningful discussions amongst themselves about the full history of Jewish people. President Gay, McGill, and Kornbluth, you can assemble all the task forces you want and organize countless students' discussions on the issue, but I can assure you that your students, especially your Jewish students, those options come across as lazy and disingenuous. None of you have presented solutions which would address the causes for anti-Semitism at your schools. In your testimonies, I've heard no self-reflection or acknowledgement of failure. President Gay, in your testimony, you said that you're guided by a simple mantra, asking, why not? To the 3 of you, I encourage you to think of one simple question: why not teach Jewish history? And Madam Chair, I will yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chavez de Remer. A 2021 study from Jay Green and James Paul, the Heritage Foundation, examined the social media feeds of 741 DEI personnel at 65 universities. Those DEI staff interacted with almost 3 times as many posts about Israel as about China. Of those interactions about Israel, 96% were critical, while 62% of the interactions about China were favorable. What is your reaction to the fact that the DEI staff on your campuses appear more favorably disposed to one of the most oppressive regimes in the world than they are to Israel? Dr. Gay.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Our DEI office and all the professionals in that office are committed to being a resource for the entire campus community, all of our students, all of our faculty, all of our staff. Their priority is ensuring that everyone feels a sense of belonging, and they do that work motivated by a commitment to safety, security, to well-being, and not within an ideological framework.
Thank you. The time is up. You can go next. Okay. Mr. Comer, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Many of our country's top universities and colleges are for sale. That's a fact. And our biggest foreign adversaries know it. Take, for instance, China and the Chinese Communist Party. They have used so-called Confucius Institutes on college campuses to spread CCP propaganda. Now we're learning about billions of dollars flooding into our universities and colleges from countries supporting terrorists that hate what our country stands for. For example, the U.S. Department of Education data shows that Qatar, a key backer and ally of Hamas, is one of the largest investors in U.S. universities. It has given more than $5 billion to U.S. institutions of higher education since 2001. Ms. McGill, data from the Department of Education shows UPenn has received more than $1.5 billion from foreign sources. Earlier, you shared with Representative Steele that Penn does not accept gifts from the government of Qatar, but has received gifts from alumni who reside in Qatar. Do you know the total amount of those gifts from alumni in Qatar?
Thank you for the question, Congressman Comer. We, of course, follow all of the laws, and we accept no gifts that are inconsistent with our academic mission that would create any interference with doing what we do at Penn. What I know about Qatar is what I mentioned earlier, is that I'm not aware of any government gifts, and we have a few alumni in Qatar. The number I have in front of me is about $2,000 a year from the donors that we have, the private individuals in Qatar.
Does Penn have a policy to not accept donations or gifts from countries that harbor or support terrorists?
Congressman Comer, we are guided by the federal government on this matter, and we follow all of the rules.
Dr. Kornbluth, this report from the National Contagion Research Institute and the Institute for the Study of Global Antisemitism and Policy shows MIT received a total of $859 million from foreign sources between 2014 and 2019. Has MIT accepted money from Qatar?
So all of our, as I said previously, all of our funds are for open publishable research. We maintain full control over the research being conducted. I would have to get you the specific funding on Qatar via the staff after this session. It's publicly available information in the public record.
Well, does MIT have a policy of not accepting money from countries that harbor or support terrorists?
So our review of all foreign money is seen through the lens of national security, economic security, and human rights.
So I say no, then. Do you, your university, think it's a good policy to accept donations from countries that support and or harbor terrorists?
I've told you what our policy is. Thank you.
I ask unanimous consent to submit this report, Madam Chair, titled The Corruption of the American Mind, into the record.
Without objection.
Dr. Gay, how much money does Harvard receive from foreign sources that support Hamas or have links to terrorist organizations like Qatar, Lebanon, and the Palestinian Authority?
Excuse me, sorry, Congressman. Harvard has policies that govern the acceptance of gifts and contracts, beginning with respecting federal law, which means that we don't accept gifts or contracts from entities that are on restricted lists. But then we go further and only accept gifts that align with our mission and that provide autonomy for our research and our faculty. We have alumni all over the world, and their philanthropy supports student aid and scholarships and cutting-edge research.
Okay, well, does the Department of Education reports that Harvard has received more than $19 million from Qatar, $2.5 million from Lebanon, and more than $1.5 million from the Palestinian Authority as of October 2023. As university president, do you think Harvard should be accepting money from countries that support terrorists?
Again, we have strict policies that govern the gifts and contracts that we accept.
But
we
do you have a
comply
personal
fully
opinion?
with federal law, and we will not accept gifts that do not align with our mission and retain
So
autonomy.
will you make a commitment to not accept money from countries that we know support terrorists?
We follow federal law.
The anti-Semitism on college campuses across the country, including your campus, has been shocking to witness, and that goes to all the witnesses I've asked questions to. We've seen the celebration of terrorism on all of your campuses, including from faculty. But when we see how much foreign money, including from our most dangerous adversaries, is going into our colleges and universities, maybe we shouldn't be that surprised. So you need to immediately reevaluate the sources of foreign donations and recognize the poisonous effect that this is happening on your campuses. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Comer. Mr. Burleson, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the witnesses that are here today. In response to the ongoing harassment of Jewish students, including supporting a, quote, National Day of Resistance, the Anti-Defamation League sent a letter to colleges and universities around the country urging them to investigate the activities of their local campus chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine. Several universities followed through with that, and as a result, some universities kicked those chapters off their campuses. In some instances, Columbia University suspended the SJP and the Jewish Voice for Peace. What steps have your universities taken to address the Students for Justice in Palestine? Dr. Gay.
Thank you for the question. So, as I indicated earlier, I reject so much of the hateful and reckless speech.
I don't want a
But we
long
don't-
answer. I just want to know, what have you taken any steps, have you followed suit with these other universities to remove this hateful organization from your campus?
We do not punish students for their views, but we hold them accountable for their conduct and behavior. And any conduct that violates our rules against bullying, harassment, or intimidation, we take action.
So your answer is no. Doesn't it concern you that your policies say that intimidation is a factor for removal, and yet this group clearly their very presence is an intimidating factor to Israeli students? Do you have any concerns?
I'm concerned about students who don't feel safe and welcome on our campus, and wanting to make sure, and I want to make sure that they receive all the support that they need. And when other students transgress and violate our policies, they will be held accountable.
Thank you. Ms. McGill, can you tell me, at your university, have you taken actions to remove the Students for Justice in Palestine?
Thanks for the question, Representative Burleson. We have similar policies, which is that any organized student group must comply with the rules of the university, and if they have violated those rules, they can be non-recognized.
Okay. And then Mrs. Kornbluth, same question.
So as far as I know, we do not have an SJP chapter. We do have students who are allied with, are interested in advocating for the Palestinian cause, but we are not aware of any national links of that group.
The next line of inquiry has to do with the lack of reporting standards when it comes to these foreign contributions, as was mentioned by my colleague. I understand that Harvard and MIT are under Section 117 investigations. A New York Post article just recently revealed that MIT received over $859 million in foreign funding. I think Harvard received similar numbers, nearly $900 million. And as was stated, some of this money is coming from countries in the Middle East that have a history of large contributions to fund these academic centers called the Middle East Studies Centers. Has Harvard taken any money to fund the Middle East Study Centers?
We receive support from a variety of sources, and our alumni are all over the world, including in the Middle East, who support our activities on campus.
Well, an analysis has indicated that there is a direct correlation between the universities that have received money for these Middle East study centers and the activity of the SJP. So I would highly encourage you to examine, and I'll just ask it directly. Is it because of the money that you're receiving from these foreign countries that you're not kicking these hate groups off campus?
Our donors do not influence how we run the university, how we enforce our policies, or how we keep our students safe.
I yield the rest of my time to my colleague from New York.
Dr. Gay, does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules on bullying and harassment?
The rules around bullying and harassment are quite specific, and if the context in which that language is used amounts to bullying and harassment, then we take action against it.
Can you say yes to that question of does calling for the genocide of Jews violate Harvard's rules on bullying and harassment?
Calling for the genocide of Jews is anti-Semitic.
So yes.
And that is anti-Semitic speech. And as I've said,
and it's
when
a yes.
speech crosses into conduct.
And it's a yes. I've asked the witnesses.
When speech crosses into conduct, we take action.
So is that a yes? Is that a yes? The witness hasn't answered. Madam Chair, is that a yes? You cannot answer the question.
Crosses into conduct.
I'm sorry.
We take action.
I'm sorry, Dr. Gay. I have to cut you off.
Of course.
Mr. Williams, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have the unfortunate distinction of being a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania as well as a visiting student at Harvard University for a year. The purpose of this hearing is to assess the health of our most elite and until recently esteemed educational institutions in this country. We raise the question whether your institutions and others like them deserve to enjoy the benefits of partnerships with our government. Research investment, student loan guarantees, tax-free status for your endowments, funding for veterans to receive educations tied to their prior service, like myself, or their ongoing service. It's been stated several times that this runs in the tens of billions of dollars across higher education, perhaps even into $100 billion. Dr. Gay, you've repeatedly in your testimony today have claimed that you believe in accountability, that acts of hate are personally abhorrent to you, that you follow federal law, that you believe all parts of your community must feel safe and secure, and that education is the solution for anti-Semitism. Does this accurately reflect your views?
I've expressed those views, yes.
And those are your testimony today. How long have you been president of Harvard?
5 months.
Sorry?
5 months.
Mm-hmm. What is your annual budget?
For the entire university?
Yes.
About $6 billion, pretty close to that.
$6 billion. How many employees?
We have 19,000 faculty and staff.
And how large is the university endowment?
It is just over $50 billion.
And how long has Harvard been in existence?
387 years.
337 years.
87.
87, sorry, I cut you by 50 there. You've said that education is the solution. All of you agreed, actually, that education is the solution for anti-Semitism, yet your educational institution, under your leadership and previous leaders, is seething with hateful and threatening anti-Semitic demonstrations. But these are only, as I mentioned, these are only against the Jewish students, no one else, just Jews. at your school. Yet, you say you believe in accountability. Should the federal government keep shoveling money and privilege to institutions like yours that fail so profoundly in their mission? Your mission's to educate. Education's the solution. You have 387 years, and you've arrived at this place of virulent anti-Semitism and hate. Why should the federal government continue to partner with you in such a failed accomplishment or lack of accomplishment?
The federal university partnership is not only a critical source of the success of all American higher education.
Well, maybe we should
also
redirect it
is-
to the ones that are, because there are other universities that are succeeding. I'm trying to get at the heart of if education is the solution. You don't seem to be accomplishing that solution, even though you've had a 387-year run-up to stamp out anti-Semitism. What happened? Is it leadership?
We have work to do to build the community that our students and our faculty deserve.
I'm looking backwards. I'm saying, how did you arrive here if education is your mission and anti-Semitism is your result? How did you arrive here? Let me help. 100 years ago, Harvard, University of Pennsylvania, other Ivy League schools actually publicly and actively began restricting Jewish enrollment. Now, I'm proud to say that Syracuse University in my district resisted this trend and did not implement those kinds of policies. But today we actually see the fruit of those decisions. And it seems to me that the leadership that we needs moral clarity to understand the moment that we're in. And I'm not really hearing that, frankly, from anyone. Ms. McGill, how long have you been the president of University of Pennsylvania?
Just under a year and a half, Congressman.
And the budget and employees there?
About $12 billion, because we have a very large health system. We have about 45,000 employees.
The endowment, please.
About $20 billion.
Do you not have enough resources to complete your mission, your stated goal of education?
We have many resources that we invest in the education of our 30,000 students.
So if education's the mission and education's the solution, how did you, Penn, arrive at this horrible place that actually I'm ashamed to be an alumni of your university?
I'm very sorry to hear that, Congressman.
I'm not alone.
We have work to do. I agree.
Well, I keep hearing that. I think you have a need for leadership or a need of federal intervention to cut off the resources that allow this continued this mission that's failed to continue.